There was a period in my life when I truly believed I was failing at English. Not because I didn't study. Not because I was lazy. Actually, I worked extremely hard. I watched videos every night. I wrote vocabulary into notebooks. I memorized grammar rules until my head hurt. I kept telling myself, if I study harder, one day I'll finally become fluent. But strangely, the harder I pushed myself, the more frustrated I became. Because every time I tried to speak, my mind froze. And honestly, that feeling is difficult to explain to people who have never experienced it. You know the words. You understand the sentence in your head. But when it's finally time to open your mouth, something strange happens. Your thoughts become heavy. Your chest tightens. Your confidence disappears. And suddenly you feel small. I remember sitting alone after one online conversation, staring at my computer screen in silence. I had spent hours preparing for that conversation. I practiced answers in advance. I repeated sentences again and again in my room. But during the actual conversation, I panicked. I forgot easy vocabulary. My pronunciation became awkward. I spoke too fast because I was nervous. And afterward, I kept replaying every mistake in my mind like a punishment. That night, I asked myself a painful question. Why does English feel so stressful? And honestly, I think many people secretly ask themselves the same thing. Not only about English, about life too. Why does everything feel heavy lately? Why does our mind constantly feel tired? Why do we overthink simple things? Why do we feel pressure even while trying to improve ourselves? For a long time, I thought my biggest problem was language learning. But slowly, I realized the problem was much deeper than that. My mind never truly relaxed. Even when I was resting, my thoughts were racing. Even when I was learning, I was judging myself. Even when I was improving, I felt behind. And one day, while reading a neuroscience article about stress and memory, I discovered something that completely changed my perspective. The human brain struggles to learn efficiently in a state of fear. That sentence stayed in my mind for days, because suddenly everything made sense. I wasn't bad at English. I was mentally exhausted. Modern life trains us to stay in survival mode all the time. We wake up and immediately check notifications. We compare ourselves to strangers online. We constantly feel pressure to improve faster, work harder, achieve more. Even rest has become stressful. People cannot sit quietly for 5 minutes without touching their phones. And then we wonder why our minds feel restless. The brain was never designed for endless stimulation. But today, silence feels uncomfortable to most people. That's dangerous, because growth requires stillness. Real learning requires attention, and attention requires calmness. I realized this during one of the most emotionally difficult periods of my life. At that time, I was sleeping badly, overthinking constantly, and carrying anxiety everywhere. And strangely, even simple English practice became harder. Not because I suddenly lost intelligence, but because stress was consuming my mental energy. Researchers from Stanford University explained that when the brain experiences stress, the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, becomes more active. This affects memory, concentration, and communication. In simple words, a stressed brain struggles to think clearly. That's why people suddenly forget words during conversations. That's why anxiety makes speaking harder. That's why fear blocks fluency. And honestly, realizing this changed the way I treated myself forever. Because for the first time, I stopped saying,
I'm stupid.
and started saying,
I'm overwhelmed.
those two things are completely different. Broken people give up. Overwhelmed people need recovery. Maybe that's what many people need today. Not more pressure. Not more criticism. Not another impossible study plan. Maybe they simply need peace. I think one of the biggest lies modern society tells us is this: if you push yourself hard enough, success will come. But the truth is more complicated. Pressure can create temporary results, but long-term growth requires emotional balance. Even elite athletes understand this. Michael Jordan didn't train 24 hours a day. Olympic athletes prioritize sleep, recovery, breathing, and mental calmness because they understand something powerful. The mind performs best when it feels balanced. And language learning is no different. I learned that lesson slowly. At first, I believed fluency meant studying aggressively for hours. But honestly, those extreme study sessions usually ended with burnout. I would force myself to learn too much too quickly. And after a few days, my brain felt exhausted. Then I would quit temporarily, feel guilty, and restart the cycle again. Maybe you've experienced this too. The cycle of motivation and disappointment. Excitement at the beginning, pressure in the middle, exhaustion at the end. One day I read Atomic Habits by James Clear, and one idea completely changed my mindset. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary results over time. That sentence sounds simple, but its meaning is life-changing. Because most people underestimate small improvements. We want dramatic transformation immediately. We want fast results.
Fast fluency.
Fast success. Fast confidence. But nature does not work that way. A tree grows slowly. Muscles grow slowly. Trust grows slowly. And confidence grows slowly too. Real transformation is usually invisible at first. I remember meeting a woman from Vietnam who practiced English every morning before work. Not for hours, just 15 minutes. She listened carefully to short audio clips, repeated sentences quietly, spoke to herself while making coffee. Nothing dramatic, but she practiced every single day. Months later, her speaking confidence became completely different. That experience taught me something important. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. And honestly, this lesson applies to almost everything in life. Most people destroy themselves through extremes. Extreme pressure, extreme comparison, extreme expectations. But sustainable growth is calm, quiet, steady, patient. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." I think about that quote often, because many people today are trying to control everything outside themselves. They want faster success, better circumstances, perfect timing, instant results. But very few people learn how to calm the chaos happening inside their own minds. And without inner calmness, even success feels stressful. I've met people who spoke English fluently but still lacked peace. Because fluency alone does not heal insecurity. Inner peace does. That realization changed the way I approached learning completely. Instead of asking, "How can I become fluent quickly?" I started asking, "How can I enjoy the process more peacefully?" That question transformed everything. I stopped treating English like an enemy. I stopped treating every mistake like failure. I stopped trying to sound perfect all the time. And strangely, the more relaxed I became, the better I spoke. Because fear creates tension, and tension blocks flow. I remember hearing an interview with Benny Lewis, the language learner famous for Fluent in 3 months. He said, "You learn a language by speaking it badly first." At first, that idea sounded uncomfortable. Nobody wants to sound awkward. Nobody enjoys making mistakes. But eventually I realized he was right. Every fluent speaker once sounded uncertain. Every confident communicator once felt embarrassed. Children learn language quickly because they are not emotionally afraid of mistakes. Adults are different. We judge ourselves constantly. We rehearse sentences in our heads before speaking. We analyze our accents. We panic over grammar mistakes nobody else even notices. And slowly, overthinking destroys natural communication. That's why confidence matters so much. Not fake confidence. Not pretending to be perfect. Real confidence means allowing yourself to be imperfect while continuing anyway. That kind of confidence changes lives. I think many people secretly spend years waiting to feel ready. Ready to speak. Ready to start. Ready to change. But life rarely works that way. Readiness often appears after action, not before it. I learned this lesson while practicing speaking alone in my room late at night. At first, I felt ridiculous talking to myself in English, but eventually, something unexpected happened. English stopped feeling foreign. It started feeling personal. I began describing small moments in English naturally. This coffee tastes good. I'm tired today. I need to finish my work. Simple thoughts. Simple emotions. And strangely, those tiny moments improved my fluency more than endless vocabulary memorization. Because language is emotional. The brain remembers what feels connected to real life. That's why storytelling is so powerful for learning languages. Stories create emotion. Emotion strengthens memory. And memory creates fluency. I think traditional education often forgets this. Many schools teach English mechanically. Vocabulary lists.
Grammar exercises.
Endless corrections. But human beings are emotional creatures. We learn deeply through feeling. That's why you can remember emotional memories from childhood clearly while forgetting random information from last week. Emotion creates lasting memory. And unfortunately, many people emotionally connect English with shame. Shame from past mistakes. Shame from embarrassment. Shame from feeling not good enough. That emotional association creates fear. And fear blocks growth. That's why healing your mindset matters just as much as studying. I truly believe many learners do not need more information. They need more self-compassion. Because harsh self-criticism slowly destroys motivation. I used to compare myself constantly to fluent speakers online. Their pronunciation sounded smooth. Their confidence looked effortless. And every comparison made me feel smaller. Until one day I realized something important. I was comparing my beginning to someone else's middle. That comparison was unfair from the start. Nobody posts their awkward early stages online. Nobody uploads videos of themselves struggling for words in silence. People usually show the polished version. But behind every confident speaker are years of mistakes nobody saw. Even famous people experienced this. Arnold Schwarzenegger was heavily criticized for his accent early in his acting career. People told him his voice would ruin his future. But instead of hiding his accent, he accepted it. Eventually, his voice became one of the most recognizable voices in Hollywood history. That story inspired me deeply, because it reminded me that authenticity matters more than perfection. Your accent tells your story. Your mistakes show your courage. Your voice deserves space too. And honestly, once I stopped trying to sound perfect, my speaking improved naturally. Because relaxed communication always sounds more human than forced perfection. That's another thing modern life makes people forget. Human connection matters more than flawless performance. Most conversations are not grammar competitions. People remember energy more than perfection, confidence more than vocabulary, presence more than accent. And presence only happens when the mind relaxes. That's why breathing changed my speaking dramatically. Before conversations, I started taking slow breaths intentionally. Nothing complicated, just slowing down my nervous system. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly, again and again. And gradually, my body stopped treating English like danger. Researchers explain that slow breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for calmness and recovery. In simple words, breathing slowly tells the brain, you are safe. That safety changes performance immediately. Athletes use it. Public speakers use it. Even military training programs teach controlled breathing under pressure. Because calm people think more clearly. I wish more language learners understood this. Fluency is not only about vocabulary. It's about emotional regulation. A calm brain accesses language more naturally than an anxious brain. That's why peaceful environments matter too. I noticed huge changes when I stopped studying in chaotic environments.
No notifications. No constant scrolling. No multitasking.
Just quiet focus. At first, silence felt uncomfortable. Modern brains are addicted to stimulation. But eventually, silence became healing. My concentration improved. My memory improved. Even my speaking rhythm became calmer. And honestly, I think many people today are not only mentally distracted. They are spiritually exhausted. Too much noise. Too much comparison. Too much pressure to constantly prove themselves. People are tired. And tired minds struggle to grow. That's why rest matters. Real rest. Not scrolling endlessly through social media while pretending to relax. True mental recovery. Walking slowly. Breathing deeply. Listening carefully. Sitting quietly without stimulation. Those moments matter more than people realize. Because peace is productive too. I know that sounds strange in modern culture. But calmness is not weakness. Calmness is power under control. And once your mind becomes calmer, everything changes. Your focus becomes sharper. Your confidence becomes steadier. Your voice becomes clearer. That's what happened to me. English stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like expression. Slowly, quietly, naturally. And maybe that's what you need too. Not another impossible study routine. Not more self-hate. Not more pressure. Maybe what you truly need is permission to slow down. To breathe. To practice peacefully. To stop punishing yourself for being human. Because growth takes time. Fluency takes time. Confidence takes time. But if you stay patient, if you practice calmly, if you protect your mind instead of constantly attacking it, one day you will realize something beautiful. You are no longer translating every thought. You are no longer terrified of conversations. You are no longer trapped by fear. And the most surprising part is this. It won't happen because you forced yourself harder. It will happen because you finally learned how to relax. And when the mind relaxes, the voice finally becomes free.